Hey, this is Riddle, and one of the members on the Fern site here asked me to do a video on how to mount your own Platycerium staghorn ferns. So I'm new to this too, and I'm going to show you what I have learned so far. First of all, redwood works really great, so does cedar. I found that redwood's really inexpensive to buy. If you buy it just in plain fencing planks, you can get a 5 foot by 5 inch piece for about $2.50 at Home Depot. And you can just decide, if you divide it into 3 or 4, what kind of lengths you want to cut it in. Also, cedar works really well. This is cedar that's been repurposed. My neighbor was throwing away an old fence and I snagged it. I really like, being earth friendly and reusing things. Once you decide what size you want, I tend to make mine a little larger than most people, just so I don't have to do it again later. You cut your pieces the same size. These are smaller ones here. So these are just 2 planks. And you're going to have different size wood screws. So you cut your 2 planks at an even length, and then you turn it over, and you have to measure and cut 2 more pieces of wood going the opposite direction. I use wood screws, and I have 2 sizes of wood screws. The first is to attach all the wood together, and that size is approximately 1 3/4. I've learned that if you drive your screw in at a slight angle, it'll keep the wood from splitting. The second size wood screw I use is a 3-inch wood screw. I use this wood screw to make my hanger. What I do is I just do 1 or 2 depending on the weight, and I drive them in at a severe upward angle, and that saves me the cost of buying the eyelets, and they hold up a lot better than an eyelet screw would also. I also found this great inexpensive picture hanging wire. It's heavy duty. Again, it was sold in a roll at one of the major hardware stores, and I measure that out and I double it for extra strength, and it works out really well. So once you have your board screwed together, another thing I recommend, I notice a lot of the people on this group are 30 and up, you definitely want a table that is higher, because this kills your back after a while, being bent over all this time. I just have to say, it's a lot of bending and weird positions and what have you, so it can really give you an achy back by the end of the day if you're doing more than 1 or 2 of these. So next we have how we're going to attach the fern or mount the fern. The simplest way is just to take your sphagnum peat moss, this has been pre-soaked, and to mount it up on your board, you put some nails or tacks in various places in a circle. You would take your plant and take it out of the pot, of course, and smash it onto that moss, maybe put some moss around the perimeter of it, and then you would use fishing line crisscrossed attached to those nails or screws or whatever you use in order to hold it into place. The only problem with that simple method for me was that I have cats and squirrels and critters, and at nighttime they were climbing on the boards and ripping the ferns off over and over. So I had to come up with something more fortified. So on Jim from the Fern Factory's advice, he has great videos on how to mount ferns also, I moved to this plastic chicken wire or plastic livestock mesh. This is pretty inexpensive. You can buy, I don't know how many feet of it. You buy a roll of it at Home Depot or Lowe's, and then you can custom cut it with a pair of really basic utility scissors. So this was a square that I cut into a circle that'll fit perfect on one of the boards. Then you have 2 choices. You can use the rounded nails like this, and you can pound these nails about every 3 to 4 inches around the perimeter of where your plastic chicken mesh is. The good thing about using these, although it takes more work, is it gives you a little bit of play. So you're going to have a plumper or a thicker place to do your planting of the staghorns. The negative thing, it's a little more work using a hammer and nail and placing these properly. The other way, the easy way, is using a staple gun. These were done with a staple gun. Next, you have to soak your medium and fill your mesh. Now here's something else I learned in the process. I use a combination of shredded cardboard to save on the moss. I just got this bale of New Zealand sphagnum peat moss. It was $41 with delivery. It's really expensive. It's so expensive. This is not that much moss, let me tell you, but it is very high grade. I have to say, of all the mosses I've purchased, this New Zealand sphagnum moss has to be the longest grain, and it has a really excellent consistency. So back to this. I soak my cardboard shred, and that's the first thing that I smash into the mesh as hard as I can. Next, I like to kind of like mimic the environment of the plant. So I use some orchid bark or some ground up bark from my yard, sticks and things, and I do a layer of that in my pocket. Next is where we're going to do our moss. Now this is much more important, of course, if your plant that you get in the mail or the plant that you're transferring was raised in sphagnum moss in a greenhouse environment or what have you. Some of them aren't. Some are in soil. So the moss is more of a conduit just to hold moisture. So as you see, I am smashing my moss into the center of my mounting board underneath the plastic chicken wire. So now this is something new that I learned. You have two choices right now. If you have the type of fern that comes from Africa or South America that likes it more dry, I suggest pounding or stapling the top of this mesh closed. Because what that's going to do is it's kind of close off the water reservoir a little bit. But if you're planting a fern in here that likes more moisture and thrives with a little more moisture, you may want to keep this pocket open. Nothing will spill out of it because it's easier to water, and water's going to get in there and it's going to hold more moisture for you. Okay, now the fun part, and this is just so easy. Next, you're going to look at the size of your pot, and then you literally just cut this mesh open approximately the size of your pot. You'll have to excuse me, I'm doing this with one hand and holding a camera at the same time. So he's being really fancy today. You kind of want it, I learned this the hard way, you want it higher than lower. And I cut the little excess off a little bit so it doesn't tear away at the tender leaves of the plant I'm going to put in here. Okay, cutting away. Okay, next we have to open this up to create a hole. Sometimes I will smash a little bit of it down and around. So we have our hole, and this is going to be really difficult because I have one hand, but next we're going to take our plant and get it out of the pot. Now this is important too. Certain species of this Platycerium are really picky about which way you plant them, and the hood should be right side up, and if you plant them the wrong side, they claim it can actually kill them. So let's see here. I'm going to get it out of the pot. Looks like a bunch of stuff on there. And look, that's going to pop right in there. Just perfect. Perfect. Then we're going to gently push our moss back around and make sure that it's making full contact with our plant and there's no air pockets. Maybe take a little more moss out of our bucket and fill in. And then if you want to, sometimes it's not necessary because this is really solid thanks to the plastic mesh. If you want to, you can take some string and do the same thing that you would have if you didn't use the mesh and crisscross it underneath the shield to hold the plant in place. But I found that this is so secure using the mesh this way that it's not always 100% necessary, and you're going to see what I mean in a minute here. So I've secured my moss in here, and my lovely little baby Walichi. I'm going to put my tag here. It's also good to record like what your different plants are if you have a big collection, because these tags, of course, they're going to wear off after a while, or animals are going to pull them off. So I actually have a notebook that I record my procession of plants going all the way down my wall, just in case. So I'm going to take my tag and I'm going to press it in here, and then it's all ready to hang. There you go. And that's it, folks. Let's hope she grows and she's happy. I hope this video has been helpful to you. The least you can do is hit the like tab just for my effort. Thank you. See you soon.